Oh boy, that was not great. GitHub, bketelsen. I'm gonna blame that one on npm. Let's do this. Get it up and running. All right, that was not great. Okay, let's do yarn dev. Get this running again. Bump the font size a little bit. Cool, all this stuff. Check out this image. Gatsby image, yay. Okay, cool. There's a Gatsby image over there. Should make sure that that still works afterwards. Less. Where would that image be? That would be in web dev. Of course it's web dev. Is that the intro? Yeah, it looks like this one. Cool, so there's an image there. That should still work afterwards. There's no video, so okay, let's do yarn add Gatsby MDX, MDX.js, MDX tag, because these are dependencies of it. Hey, how's it going, Chig? Cool, so now I believe Emacs is already running, but thank you, yeah. Let's see. Oh, right, there's a pipe in there. Looks like it's running. I usually need to kill it first, but Gatsby config. All right, this should be good. I'll boost the font size here for everybody. Right, so now my computer is running zero software other than OBS, one Chrome window, and one terminal. So definitely not under any load here. Go for rocks, etc. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to change this transformer remark to Gatsby MDX. The plugins are going to be the same. I'm going to remove the Prism one because we need to go back and do that later as a component. And then I think everything else is fine. So let's just, it's already running here, yeah. Let's just see if it works, see if we run into any issues right off the bat. Yep, so all of the markdown remark stuff is failing, which is expected completely. There's a lot of sort of markdown remark references to change. Did I not ignore it? Oh, I need to ignore public too. There we go. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 to 15 places we need to change this. Instead of writing a sed command, I'm going to go through each one and sort of look at the code, just so we have a better understanding of what's going on. All of this, we're not changing any of the logic here. So this is going to be just a straight up replacement to start with, and then we'll go back and we'll look at how everything is constructed and see if we can do something that makes it a little easier to add new course pages and things like that in the future. Let me turn prettier off so I don't screw up all of your formatting. Just type. So we're switching on an internal type here. The internal type is going to change to be MDX instead of markdown remark. And the other two changes we made in the Gatsby node file are for querying all of our MDX content or all of our markdown content, and the other one is for iterating over that markdown content. So then we have a page that makes references to markdown remark, and we have two templates that make references to markdown remark. So these are all basically page query replacements. So that's just replacing it in the query, and this is replacing it, where was it? It's all the way down here at the edges. Cool. Let's see. Card takes content, that should be fine. I'm keeping an eye out for any sort of like node issue. Yeah. So we're going to change node HTML to code body, but I think I'm going to do this one by one just so that it's more of a like natural experience. So like somebody else can go watch this and be like, oh, I changed all the markdown remark, but it's still not working. Let's see what error we hit, and then we'll change it and we'll fix the error. Templates, course template. Remark, MDX. And we'll do another replace for markdown. Cool, so now we're destructuring MDX and all MDX at the top for the data. We are passing the MDX edges into this card component. We are using MDX for the queries, so that's where those names come from. And then I believe the last ones are in lesson template. So we'll do the same replacement here. Cool. So same thing. We changed the queries here to look for Markdown or MDX. Sorry. We're pulling off the new names off the destructuring, and we're using them in the same way that we were using the ones before. So there should be nothing here that is a major change. It's all just straightforward replacements, and all of the functionality in terms of front matter and things like that should work the exact same way. We will hit an error here where we have to use MDX render instead of HTML. But let me show you what that error looks like instead of just straight up doing it immediately. Right, so, oh, I didn't add it to the config. Right, so let's go into our Gatsby config. This is Gatsby MDX. There are some plugins. These plugins need to be Gatsby Remark plugins because that's what they are. I think the files were named .md as well and not .mdx, so we're going to have to add the .md extension to the list of let me turn prettier off again. We're going to add MD to the list of extensions that MDX uses. So that it actually processes the markdown files. So that's good. Yep. We need to change the configuration here because these need to be like this. And this isn't like strictly necessary, absolutely speaking. We could support the regular way, but it's just the way it is right now. I'm just going to leave those like that. And then the remark images is already doing that. So this will probably not work right off the bat. See? So there's still some problems here. You can see that if you, now that we're using MDX, we can actually create files in source pages. So if we did a source pages courses intro-go.mdx, it would create a file at this location. But there is something going wrong in the Gatsby node for the creation of these pages. So we expect all these creating of pages to be console logging out. Oh, what version of Gatsby MDX did I just install? .3.2, which means that the template should run. This is a page template, so we shouldn't be getting that error. I think this is because I installed the other version first, so I'm going to remove this and remove the cache as well. Right, because I just did that. You're welcome to move the courses. Yeah, I don't want to move anything yet. I want to do the conversion to MDX, make sure everything works, and then after I do the conversion to MDX, we can talk about moving things into different places and how that makes it easier or less easy to do things. Every property edges of undefined. So let's take a look at what we're getting in GraphQL. Remove all of this. We will do, let's see, we have an all MDX somewhere in here. There we go. We'll just auto expand that. So we have a bunch of MDX content here. Are we seeing the create page calls come in? It doesn't look like it. So we're running create pages, cannot read property edges of undefined. So we're going to look at Gatsby node line 41. I'm assuming this is yeah, this is this. So let's do a log here and check to see what we're getting. Because we're not actually making it to the create pages calls. Totally. And I'll put this up later as a video in case you want to watch it. But yeah. Where are we? Yes. So we don't care actually about what the site is doing because we're just looking at, so create pages, all MDX edges. Oh, no, I do. Thank you. Yeah, welcome to streaming, where you make all of the stupid mistakes. Thank you for that. Cool. So now everything's fixed. Well, so far. It's still going to hang up on the HTML issue, I believe, but actually it doesn't. Technically, we do have HTML support, so you don't actually have to do anything more than this. I forgot that we did that, actually. So there's the layouts. Oh, okay, there we go. The layouts are not showing the MDX content, they're just showing the layout content. So we have to go back and we have to change the HTML stuff, like Hagner was saying earlier. So we'll start off with the page and see if there's anything in here. Doesn't look like it. We're not really rendering anything in terms of MDX stuff. We're making a static query. We're passing it into card. Card is courses. Courses has edges. I'm assuming card is somewhere in here. Yeah, components, talk card. So here's talk card. Talk card is doing front matter stuff, so it doesn't matter. We don't care about it. We'll go into the template because we have course template and lesson template, which are definitely going to need an MDX import. So right here we have div and the HTML field that we're using to set the inner HTML. And really what we want to do here is import the MDX renderer. This is the thing about working on other people's projects. Like, I'm used to just typing things and having prettier, like, totally swap everything out, but I don't want to, like, make a massive mess of a commit here. So MDX renderer, class name can get passed through. That's not relevant anymore. And then launch, where is this? MDX. We're going to get rid of this HTML call, and we're going to do code body. I'm hoping to turn this into actually like just a body call, I think, at some point. Just thinking about like the way the API works. and the way that themes work and the way that like the data abstraction for themes that I'm working on works. But I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. MDX dot code dot body. And this is the courses one, so we need to go back to courses. I think that's the. I really don't know which one this is rendering. I should check that. Let's do Gatsby node, courses, course template. I think courses is the main page for the course. So I think it's going to be this page, but I'm not sure about that. That's so weird. What is going on with the computer? Okay, looks like we're good. But this is not. What the hell, OBS? What is going on here? Why can't I click on anything except for... So Chrome is still running, but why is iTerm freaking out? No, Chrome is now doing it too. No, it's not. Okay, there we go. Did something work here? There's something locking up my terminal and my ability to like access the menu and things like that. Which is super weird. Like I can't open Alfred and I can't access the menu. I can't type into my terminal. I wonder if iTerm is the issue. I'm going to kill iTerm and go back to terminal. There we go. Everything kicks in as soon as I say that I'm going to kill terminal. I wonder if there's an OSX update that I need to do, and that's why this is happening. Okay, we're back. I don't know what that was, but it's happening. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to kill the stream and figure out what's happening here because I basically can't type right now. So I think I'm gonna kill the stream. Yeah, OBS is... Come on. It's something to do... It's got to be something in like the file system or something. There we go. Okay. I don't know why that's just sticking there. All right, let's see if this works. Where's MDX renderer? There we go. MDX renderer here. Actually, so MDX renderer Hagner can be imported from Gatsby MDX itself. It is re-exported through the index file. It's not something that I use very often, but it is definitely possible. Blah, blah, blah. MDX renderer content. Do that. No, it's not the same with the rest of the API. If you look at the Gatsby MDX Git repo, you'll see an index file in the Gatsby MDX package, and it just exports MDX renderer. It doesn't export everything because it doesn't really make sense for things that you use, like specifically in the browser, to be packaged with things that you also use in Node. So it doesn't do everything right now. It's just the MDX renderer. But yeah, so we need to do the same thing over here. You know what I wonder? I'm really wondering right now if my hard disk just started failing. Because the things that are really slow are things that are associated with the file system. Like you can see the copying Gatsby files usually takes, I don't know, split seconds. So I think what I'm dealing with here is a failing hard drive, which is not good and something that I need to deal with. code, body, save. I think all MDX doesn't use it, so we'll go back up. We'll go swap out the dangerously set HTML. We're passing the class name through because you can actually access that. I don't know that it will do anything in this specific case because I didn't look at what it actually does. But all of that should have worked. Let's do intro to go. If we can open this file. This is like the most painful stream I've ever done because of this like like hard drive issue or whatever the fuck is going on. Like everything's taking multiple seconds to happen. So actually what I might do after I get off this stream is go buy a hard drive and back up my entire hard drive. Cool, that's good, that's good. Let's go to the introduction. This is the opening lesson. We're gonna have to figure out what the actual content is in there to know if this worked or not. Let's go for, where is this? This is in courses, and this is the intro, and this is the first intro, I believe. Yeah, no, it's a failing hard drive. This is extremely like extremely not cool. I mean, this computer is 6 years old at this point. I think I got it in late 2013, so five or 6 years at this point. So yeah, definitely going to have to deal with that. Okay, so we have the opening lesson rendering, so that's good. So the MDX renderer works. Let's look at page 2 because it has a lot more content on it. Go back once here, right? If everything doesn't take 50 million years to click on. I just realized the link is actually down here to get to the next one. Gotta click that. Cool. So let's dope. Everything, this is all MDX now. See if these include the header links. This is amazing. Like right clicking takes 5 to 10 seconds to open the window. Perfect. So the AutoLink headers plugin is working. You can you can't see that, and I don't know if I can make it bigger right now. Let's try that. That's still probably too small. Ah, so big. Okay. Do this. Then see, okay, so the Gatsby remark AutoLink headers is working because the IDs on these are all of the AutoLinks. Yeah, I actually have an SSD in here, I think. But yeah, this is 100% a failing hard drive right now. Because the things that I'm doing right now that are all slow are all file system related. So That's unfortunate. But let's take a look at the React output of this. So this will unfortunately not be a good instructional stream that I can put and archive on YouTube, because I stop every 3 seconds to like make so that it works. Here we go. So this is the MDX content. Let's see if we can. It's all like way indented, but so there's, where did we put that? There's lesson container here, which we can see right here. And there is lesson content. Lesson content goes onto the root MDX component. You can see that the children is actually compiled MDX code. And all of these things, I mean, probably, so there's MDX tag, which is the thing that renders elements and allows you to actually do replacements and things like that. And there is MDX content, and MDX content is the actual class that is generated. That is the default export for all MDX content. And then all of these is all of the content, right? There's pre-tags, there's H3s, there's paragraphs, and it's just all of this stuff in here. So that's dope. All of that works. So the total path to changing this was actually not super intensive. If I can show you, and my terminal will allow me to. The problem is I have things in my terminal prompt that access the file system. So every time I try to kill a process or like just do an ls, my terminal prompt does like git status and things like that, which are usually super fast and I can't notice them. But because of this failing hard drive, takes forever. And you can see like I have my Kubernetes cluster listed in there. I have my Node version or my NVM version for Node listed in there. I have the package for the current package that I'm working in, whether it's like Node package or Python package, anything like that. I have the git status, like, and then I have the time for every command that's run. So there's a lot of stuff in my terminal prompt that is. Okay, so here's what we did. We're going to diff all the files now. If it will let us diff the files. Yeah, you know, it actually is probably time for me to get another computer. This is an old Mac Pro, like a trash can style. So it's super old at this point. I don't even know if I can get it fixed at Apple. But yeah, so what we did here is we apparently removed that comma, which is unimportant. And then we changed the Gatsby transformer remark to be Gatsby MDX. We changed the name of the plugins that were being used, Gatsby remark plugins. We removed the Prism.js remark plugin because the next thing that we're going to do is actually write a Prism component and use that wrapping the root of our project. And what that will do is allow us to, in the future, some of these code blocks presumably will have like interactive Go code. And hopefully, one of the things that I hope that I can do here is actually call out to the Go playground. And actually let you run code from the browser that runs against the playground and then comes back. But everything's taking forever today. So yeah, so no real changes to the plugins, no real changes to like the logic of any of this other stuff. All of the markdown remark things are swapped to MDX. So it's like you could set this over all of the files and it would change all of the files and that would be it. You wouldn't really have to do anything else. And then there's the package lock JSON that we removed, which I'll try to get past here. as fast as possible because we moved to Yarn. Actually, let me just go to the bottom. Okay, and at the bottom we see more replacements, and then the only other interesting change that we made is this MDX renderer. So you see a bunch more, like here is the markdown remark swap to MDX, markdown remark swap to MDX, and all of the references. And then the only change that is really substantial is this MDX renderer. And the difference is that this MDX renderer is meant to take the content of the MDX code body and actually render it out. And then you can import that from Gatsby MDX. It should be right here at the top of the file. And that's the only logic change that we made. Everything else is just like a straight text replacement. And we installed Gatsby MDX, the MDX plugins. So I'm actually pretty happy with what you need to do these days to swap in Gatsby MDX and use it. I know Hagnerd will remember the component with MDX Scope API, and that API was super confusing for everybody, and nobody knew what it did or why it was there. So I'm really happy that we were able to get rid of that, which means that we don't need to do any create page changes. Yeah. So overall, very happy with how this turned out. I'm going to create a new branch. I have to fork the courses project so that I can do a PR against it. Fork. And I think this dialog is going to take longer to show up than the come on, you can do it. There we go. Yeah, the dialog is going to take longer to show up than the actual forking process on GitHub's backend is going to take, which is kind of hilarious. It should only take a few seconds. Looks like somebody else forked it while I was doing the stream too. I think that was at 0 before this. So we're going to rename, well, let's take a look at the remotes first of all. And the remote that's going to show up here is the origin remote, and it's going to point to the original repo. And we are going to rename that to upstream, and then we're going to add rename origin upstream. And then I'm going to take this URL. gr add origin, and then we're going to use that URL. Oh, that is the. Oh, it didn't pick up my copy paste, so we're not going to. Let's make sure that that isn't there. Yep. Cool. So let's try to make sure that this works this time. There we go. Add new origin. MDX and Yarn. We'll add everything here and the Yarn lock. Push this to origin. Create a pull request. could make this actually much bigger for y'all, so I don't have to. Yeah, so so we're switching to MDX from Remark. We enabled the use of MDX in place of Remark. This allows React components to be used inside of Markdown content as shortcodes, and also allows us to replace code block rendering and other elements with more interactive versions. Cool. There is a to-do here, but I'm going to leave that there for now. Should be able to go and see that the pull request was created. So there it is. So now all of the, this is probably too small, but it's the same thing that we just went through. There's the extensions, there's the Gatsby Remark plugins that are the exact same thing, but just moved around a little bit. There is the Gatsby MDX replacement for the transformer. And then everything else is basically a straight swap of the Markdown Remark name to the MDX name. And then the functional change that we made is to both templates, the course template and the lesson template. We introduced MDX renderer, and we used that to render the content instead of using, oops, that doesn't look right. Oh no, that's fine. That's a negative, yeah. MDX renderer, and we can pass in any props we want here to the MDX renderer, and then you can access them actually in the MDX itself. So that's a full swap. I think the next time I do this, what I'm going to do is actually just write a sed command to do all the MDX swaps, and then go in and insert the MDX renderer, and that'll be a really nice result, because it'll just be a single command and then a couple of replacements and you'll be done. Cool, so let's do the prism replacement, because we removed the actual prism rendering, and what we want to do here is, how far are we out? So there's a Gatsby config and a Gatsby node in the root of this project. And the thing that we want to do is we're going to have to wrap root element. And what wrap root element is going to do, if you are so inclined, you can read about the approach that I'm about to take here. It's called code blocks MDX and MDX utils. So basically what I'm going to do here is copy and paste the code that I wrote in a blog post yesterday. And I'm going to remove the React Live stuff, because the React Live stuff isn't relevant to a Go project, right? And that's that. And so now we need to install Prism React Renderer. And we also need to install MDX utils, because it makes it a little easier to work with the actual components. And what I'm going to do here is export a wrap root element function from this file, which takes an element and does an MDX provider to the components field. and just renders the element in the middle of it. And what this is going to do for us is allow us to replace the rendering of code blocks with a React component. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste more code from this this blog post I wrote yesterday, which is going to be this pre-decode thing. I think I need to copy the imports too. I'm basically just taking a shortcut for the purposes of the stream. But yeah, so this is now we have a code component that does prism highlighting, and that we can add any functionality to in the future that we want to do. We have a set of components that are going to be used in an MDX provider. And what that does is lets us replace any element that Markdown will render to. So we can replace paragraph tags with different styling. We can replace pre-blocks with like fancy code blocks like we're doing now. We can replace all of the headers, all of the links, all of the styling, everything like that. So it gives us a pretty high level of control over how Markdown actually ends up rendering, which means that we can end up doing whatever we want, right? In this particular example, for the blog post, I did the prism highlighting as one code block, and an actual live code sample that you can just edit on the page as the other code block. And the really nice thing about doing it this way is that we don't have to change anything that we write in our Markdown, right? Anything that we write in our Markdown is just going to be the normal 3 backticks or the 4 indents code blocks. And yeah, and then we can actually pass props from that code block into our React component. So I'm going to import wrap root element as wrap from wrap root element, and I'm going to export wrap root element as wrap. And this is in Gatsby-ssr.js, which handles some server-side rendering stuff. And then I just saved the same file into Gatsby-browser. So make that a little bigger so you can see it. It's super simple because we kept all of the logic in the wrap root element file. Just drag this up. So yeah, once again, we're importing the MDX provider from MDX. We're importing some highlight stuff from Prism React Renderer. We're importing a utility function from MDX utils that just makes it easier to get the props that we want from the pre-component. And then we're swapping in this more robust way of rendering code blocks by wrapping the root element of our Gatsby project in the MDX provider. So, I should be able to just run this. And it should show us, this one has the most code blocks on it. I don't know if these are, I don't know if they have languages on them. Doesn't look like they do. So I just blew away the cache for a second. So that everything gets picked up. did I do? Code string language props, pre-props. Just going to log this out to make sure it's getting called. And the fact that that just re-rendered is a good sign. Clear this. I am trying to think of what else I need to do. I did the wrap root element in the Gatsby SSR. I did the wrap root element in. I exported wrap root element. It uses the element. It uses MDX provider. So these code blocks should be rendering with our custom component, but they are not for some reason. Let's make sure that wrap root element is being called. Oh, I am I make all of the worst mistakes on stream, I swear. I wasn't returning in my wrap root element. Okay, cool. So now you see that all of these are code highlighted and whatnot. We don't have automatic language detection. Look at the element. Yep, there we go. So we don't have automatic language detection, so the language is coming in as undefined. We could set a default if we wanted to, if we knew that most of this was going to be like a shell or something like that. So I think that the way that Prism uses it is we would have to say bash, or if that's correct. Yeah. So if we pass in a language, then we get bash highlighting, right? You can see that the equal signs and things like that are now highlighted. This probably isn't a theme that will be super interesting, but we can always change that as well. So let's see. Prism React Renderer has a couple themes in it. Oh man, I am getting very hungry. The theme is duotone dark. Is this going to be a link to, yep, the link to all the themes. So we've got a couple choices here. I'm probably going to use duotone light because I think that was closest to what we had before. But we can do any sort of, anything we want really. So Prism React Renderer. I don't know if these are exported where do I pass the theme in the actual Prism React Renderer component? Cool, code theme. The default props, theme, class names. You can use Prism CSS files. I don't know if there's one in this project. I'll ask them in the PR. JSON base, blah, blah, blah. So I think it would be like this. Yep, and there we go. And we have a something that was a little bit closer to what was being used on the site previously, when we removed the actual Gatsby Remark Prism AST manipulation. But yeah, so these components can contain arbitrary code, right? So one thing that I really would love to do some point soon is, oh, the Go Playground link is right here, perfect. There is a Go Playground right here. Is this a link to a Go Playground? It is a link to a Go Playground. So basically this is, you can run this and then you get some information down here. And what we could actually do is sort of call out to this. I don't think there's an API, but there's a standard out class here. So we could actually just scrape all of the content inside of standard out, or inside of this pre-tag in the output, and just use it on our side as well. And then we get sort of like this effect where we write code in markdown code blocks. So if we look at the content for page 2, page 2, then we get, so see that all of these are force-based and they don't have any information on them, but what was I going to say? But they're all just like normal, they're normal markdown code blocks. And we can turn them into anything, right? We can turn them into, if we have some Go code here, we can call out to something like the Go Playground. We can run the code, and then we can display it back on the page in a nice little like output buffer. So yeah, this sets us up to do all of that kind of stuff. So once again, the changes that we made here to add this code component, we installed MDX we installed the Prism React renderer, and then we have a set of files here that are Gatsby browser and Gatsby SSR. Both of them use the same function that we have in wrap root element, because there isn't anything special that we need to do in either of these files. Because sometimes you need to do things on one way for like the server and one way for the browser, right? If something relies on the document or whatever. And then we have this wrap root element that exports our components and the MDX provider around the core of our site. So yeah, now we have code highlighting and we can change it to do anything we want. And I think this is actually a really powerful feature, especially for like programming language documentation sites, or like learning courses and things like that, because you can embed actually executable blocks of code in your courses or in your tutorials or in your blog posts, or like on your marketing page for like, I don't know, your programming language or something like that, right? Like, I know that React has a bunch of stuff. Or let's look at React UI actually, because I think there's code blocks on here that could benefit from that. So there's this, right? And you can change it, and you can be like, okay, well, I want to do like this blue color, and that just renders as a blue color, right? And you can actually do that for any. So this is, I think this is using docc, which is MDX based as well. But you can do this for any language, right? As long as it has an API that you can hit and an output buffer that you can paste into, then you can do this for anything. So we'll push that up. And that sort of is everything that I wanted to do on the stream. There is, I can get into some just general maintenance that I need to do on Gatsby MDX. I've got about 20 minutes before my food is ready, so we could get into that. If anybody has any sort of like questions that they would love to have answered, that would be cool. I'm happy to go into any details, or I can do examples now, things like that. I wonder if this is actually going to deploy an example. That would be pretty cool. I know that the page changes makes time. I bet you this is failing because I don't have permissions to actually make it deploy something. What is this? This is mini CSX extract plugin loader. Cannot find lodash.camelcase. Interesting. Those are not modules that we touched, so it's interesting that those would fail. It's all lodash.camelcase, which is interesting. I guess this is the Prism theme that was being used before, so we could totally do that. There's a code mirror theme happening here too. I didn't see any usages of code mirror yet. Bootstrap stuff. So there's some CSS issues going on here. I don't know if this is a issue that was pre-existing or not. So Lodash is here. There's merge from Lodash. Doesn't look like anything else is getting pulled in. There's flatten unique by get. This looks like it's a mini CSS extract plugin loader issue, so we can take a look at that. So dist, and then what in loader, loader.js, and on what line? 548. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's just 548 is not. Nope, that's not the right. Let's see, where's Lodash in here? Lodash does not exist in here, so it's not being imported or anything, which is interesting. Module load, load runner, factory hooks. Source page is index 7. Okay, so let's look at the content here. Import index.css. Yeah, okay. So let's try to reproduce this by doing a yarn. Well, I don't know if this is actually going to be called build. Yarn build. If it doesn't fail locally and it fails remotely, that will be interesting. I think that'll just be a caching issue. But it looks like it's all of the CSS files. So I'm wondering if it's... Oh, we're still logging out. Yeah, so it's got to be a caching issue because none of the, and I can't redo do this because I don't have the permissions on the repo, but I could swap out here and I can close this. And let's get rid of this console log down here because we don't need it. But if you want to look at the sort of like, this is the thing that we're transforming into like a usable set of props. And it can get a little bit complicated to like try to dive into every time. So that's why I wrote the MDX utils package. Let's look for console. Ignore public and ignore cache. Cool. So the rest of that is fine. Cool. So yeah, this looks like a caching dependencies issue kind of thing. Using 1.3 of yarn, so not really an issue. But yeah, that's that. One thing that I do want to look at, and I might do it on stream right now, is this one is probably going to be a fairly simple one. So there's an issue for Gatsby MDX right now, where somebody is having an issue accessing front matter, but only on build, not on anything else. So we can sort of pull this down and take a look at it. Just going to do some installs. However, this does have to finish. And I think that we're going to have, this is a blog starter, I believe, that this person was using. So they say that it's working when you develop, so we're just going to check to make sure that that is actually the case. And then I will also check the version of Gatsby MDX that's being used. Zero point two. So 0.2 is no longer the most recent version. So any problem that happened in 0.2 is probably not something that's going to be that's cool. Tippy.js. A documentation site completely for Tippy. That's cool. Yep. Language HTML, Gatsby highlight. So they're using the Remark Prism JS plugin. They have nothing in Gatsby Node, so it's all done through source pages. Their config, let me redo that. Their config looks like it's fairly standard. They have a default layout, the Prism.js stuff. Yep. So let's see if this actually does error out on build. Since it seems to be working, it seems to be fairly normal. It is an old version. It's a reasonably old version at this point too. So that could very easily be the issue, and they just need to upgrade. But I'm expecting to see the issue that they mentioned happen right now. There we go. Canary property front matter of undefined. Okay. That's page context in somewhere. Where is that? Check its source. Looks like the layout component is one culprit and the SEO component is the other one. So that's interesting. So page context at front matter.title. So let's start off with just this, and also let's look at their pages, their MDX pages. Cool. There's a title called demo in this one. Makes sense. They aren't doing anything in Node. Are they doing anything in SSR? Are they doing anything in browser? They're doing a lot of stuff in browser. Interesting. Add link headers on route updates. So there's a lot going on in this one. I don't think any of it is related to page context, so it doesn't matter. I'm going to log out the page context there and do a build here. So this page context should start logging out on us. Yeah, I mean, my general advice to this person is going to be upgrade. But it does look like page context is undefined. So let's dive into the actual Gatsby MDX code. And let's go to the thing that does the page creation. And let's make sure that this is happening appropriately. Cool, so let's just see if that works. So now we're basically just debugging. So the front matter is getting there. The front matter is getting put in the page context. So it's interesting that page context is not defined there. I think they're using this as a MDX layout. So if they're using it as an MDX layout, how could that affect page context? Let's console log props. And see if anything's actually getting passed in. So the way that the page context support works, I realize that this code is actually probably not big enough for anybody to see. The left side is theirs, the right side is ours, but it's in node modules on an old Gatsby MDX version. So the way that the page context for an MDX file and source pages gets added is we basically look for the page, we delete the page, we recreate it, and we add the front matter to the page context. So the props on this are not what they are expecting. The children are what looks like MDX content. So I wonder where this is getting used. So I'm going to look at that. It's getting used in the 404 page, which is interesting. It's getting used as the layout component as well, which I think is used in vconfig. Yep, so the default layout is the source component's layout. I don't know if you get page context on 404s. So let's take a look at the 404 pages. Actually, that could be the problem. It's entirely possible that they are not getting the page context on the 404 page, because we've got 3 React elements. One is a function, one is an h1, one is a paragraph tag, and that is function h1 paragraph tag. So the one it's failing on is definitely, actually it's not that one. So let's see, we did a console log in the layout. The layout logs out and then tries to render. Yeah, I actually think it is the 404 page. I think the 404 page is what's failing here. So let's do this. Let's check the 404 page and we can modify it. .404.js layout. I think actually what we need here is the page context. And I think that will actually Assuming that the 404 page does actually get the page context when we do the yarn build, that should fix the error. So this is actually, if this works, it's actually not an MDX issue, which is interesting. But it did not work, so what is our issue here? Cannot read property title of undefined. Okay. Oh, there's no front matter on the page context because the 404 page is not an MDX file. So that's interesting. That will be what I say to them. But let's just hack this together a little bit. Right, and let's do... We're going to spread the page context, and then we're going to also set front matter to an empty object. Or actually, let's not set it to an empty object. Let's set it to that. So yeah, I'm reasonably happy that this is not a MDX issue. And it's just like they need to pass through the page context to the layout. Because the page context doesn't actually get automatically passed around. Window is not defined. Okay, so the nav checks window. And when we're building, I don't think we have access to window. Which is interesting. So what I'm going to do for this person is to say oh, I sneeze all over the place over here. Actually need to sign in, so I'm going to do it on my laptop. But yeah, the issue is that this 404 page doesn't have the page context passed in. I'm going to have to go over and turn that off in a second. It's going to beep every 5 seconds or so. I think I can stop it from here, actually. Stop cooking. Yes, I'm sure. There we go. Where was I? Okay, yeah. So I'm going into this issue on the repo right now. I'm going to take the code that I just wrote right there, and I'm going to tell them that they basically need to pass in the page context. If I can find the file. Actually isn't an MDX issue. It's failing on the 404 page. So what they need to do is to pass the page context through to the layout component. think that's it, right? It's just the page context, it's the page context and the front matter. And then I'm going to add a note that says, also note that the front matter is undefined because there is no front matter in the 404 file. Cool. I'm pretty happy with that. It is a fairly quick fix, fairly quick discovery. And that is basically what I have to do for maintaining Gatsby MDX. So if you look at this, the comment I just wrote is basically, this actually isn't an MDX issue, it's failing on the 404 page. Here's the 404 page. And actually I didn't add code highlighting on that. So I'm going to add some code highlighting on that comment. Cool. So that's that. And I think that since my food's done, I'm going to stop the stream there. So we've successfully converted the courses site. So successfully converted the Go courses site to MDX. If anybody wants to look at the PR, it is bketelsen /courses, and it's the first pull request. Next time I think we'll speed this up, because I've done this a couple of times now, and now that Gatsby MDX is starting to get a little bit more mature, I can start just saying like, hey, here's a sed command to do all these markdown remark replacements, and then the only thing we need to go in and actually do on stream is replace with the MDX renderer, and it'll make things go a little faster, and we can get into more of a more interesting logic. Like we can start implementing really cool code components and things like that, or implementing like React shortcodes, because one of the things that we just shipped is a global scope for Gatsby MDX, which enables you to use React components as shortcodes inside of your Markdown files, which is pretty dope. And yeah, that's going to be it for today. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for sticking through the hard disk issues that I was apparently having earlier. Gonna need to figure that out too. So see y'all later.